as Chris X. I want to thank you guys for showing up here. I had no idea we were going to have no people, 5 people, 10 people, but I think it's a good turnout, and I'm very pleased with you guys all taking a Saturday morning. I know you have stuff to do in the world that we have, and so I just really appreciate it. I want to acknowledge before we get going a few people that have helped that are here. And some of you might have gotten postcards in the mail filled out by people. If you got one from me, you probably couldn't read the handwriting. But I want to thank John Lips, that's John, who helped out, and Kyle Ebaugh, back there, who helped out. Ed Carter over here, who's just back from Ethiopia, so you can ask Ed about Ethiopia. And Pam Faust, who's right here. So I want to thank those people for helping out. And we had a meeting getting ready for what we're going to try to do here today. And I don't know if what we're going to try to do here today is going to work out. I don't know if it's going to be fun, but hopefully it'll be productive, and hopefully everybody will learn something, and we'll all walk out of the room with a little more clarity and maybe a little more thought about how are we going to keep Clermont County from going down a path of Hamilton County, which is to become a blue county, or to do the same, and how are we going to not do the same kind of things that caused Hamilton County to go blue? Okay, how many people are Hamilton County transplants to Clermont County? So I grew up in Mount Washington, okay, and I remember I was a kid when like Steve Shabbat in his early days was going door to door, you know, and Ken Blackwell, and Hamilton County was known for having these conservative stalwarts, and then it kind of all just went sideways. And we don't want that to happen here. I noticed that this blinks on and off every now and then. I have a backup projector back there in case it goes out, but hopefully it doesn't happen. But it has so far just blinked, so if it's annoying, I apologize for that, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have maybe little introductions at some point here. We're gonna do background. We're gonna talk about potential reform areas. We're gonna have open discussion on next steps or what we think needs to happen. Before we do that, why don't we all stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'll have Ed Carter lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And maybe that liberty and justice for all thing has more meaning now as we quickly approach the complete status of Banana Republic and what we do. So let's talk about, background. I'm going to ask a question with the keypad, so there's going to be various questions as we go. Not yet, but I wanted to start out with just giving a little background as why are we here, what's going on. So some of you, one of the questions is going to be, are you on Central Committee? And I see people are friends that are on Central Committee. And are you not on Central Committee? You know, not been on Central Committee or been on some other Central Committee? I'm going to ask that question a little bit. But based on just looking at the people here, we probably have a lot of different experience as to what's going on. We have people that have been on the Clermont County Republican Central Committee for a long time and know what's going on, know what's going on now, know what's going on. Some know what's going on long in the past. Some of you probably have no knowledge of what's going on, maybe even in the past or even now. If you're not on Central Committee, you don't know what's going on now. So you notice that it's said back here, Clermont County Republican parties. And it says down below there, reform the Clermont GOP PAC. So the main mission, and hopefully you understood this when you came here, is that we need to reform Republican politics in Clermont County so that we don't become like Hamilton County. So that we don't end up, if you look at the progression of a county that goes blue, it tends to be that it becomes more lawyer class. It eventually starts focusing on judge races more than anything else, because that's what the lawyer class cares about, and then eventually it's all slipped away. That's what's happened in Hamilton County. Okay, that could happen here. And so we're going to talk I'm going to give some background that for some of you may be like, what the heck is he talking about? But hopefully you'll get it enough, and then we'll get into areas of reform. So in terms of the background, in Ohio, a political party is you. So anybody that votes in Republican primaries is a member of the Republican Party. So that's the statute. Any group of voters Major party is over 3%, and they get automatic status. Minor party, you have to do petitions, like as Trump said, libertarians be happy with your 3%. Okay, so they might, but if you're some smaller group, you have to do petitions as a party, and that's a minor party. When you're a major party, you're subject to all kind of governance. That you have to have a central committee, you have to have a filed constitution, you have to put your member list to the state party, you have to appear on a ballot in a Secretary of State supervised election. So anybody who votes in a Republican primary, how many people here vote in a Republican primary? That's just a check because we didn't actually check. It said on the thing that you had to be a member, show as a member. You vote in the Republican primary, you show as a member of the Republican Party in the Secretary of State's database. And I don't know if any of these people here, that's the beginning of the list, a lot of areas. According to our Board of Elections, there's 34,142 members of the Republican Party in Clermont County. That can be a very fluid number. I describe it for people that don't understand the difference between central committees and the party itself. It's kind of like if you're Christian and there's Christendom versus individual denominations. So you're all Christians, but we're the Lutherans, we're the Catholics, we're the this. So they're within that. So these organizational structures, but you're all part of Christendom. So you're all part of the party when you vote in the party's primaries. So when you're a member of the party, you get certain privileges. You get to vote on who represents the Republican Party in the general election. You get to vote on who is on the county central committee for your precinct. Precinct is where you live. You get to vote on who is on state central committee for our state Senate district. So there's a thing called state central committee, and that's by Senate, Ohio Senate district. And you get to run for offices as a Republican. So those are the privileges you have, anybody has that votes in Republican primaries. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me what is the county central committee? What is that? What is that?
We're going to talk about that. Okay, so I'm just getting going here. What's the party? Okay. By the way, in Ohio, because people talk about this, we have a very open system of this. So you could be, it'd be like you're a Christian one day and you decide you're going to be something else the next day. Okay. You can be a Republican today, and you can decide tomorrow you want to be a Democrat and vote in their primaries. You can be, it says here you get to run for office as a Republican. If you show in the voter database as having no party, which means you don't vote in either party's primaries, you can effectively say you're Republican or Democrat anytime you want. Because you can say, my intent now is to do this. So no party people can be Republicans or Democrats. So let's talk about what's Central Committee and Executive Committee real quick. I see people taking pictures of these. I'll probably put these online on the Facebook page, so they're not secret, so you'll be able to have copies of them. So the party is all Republican primary voters. The Central Committee is a statutorily required body for any major party that has one member per precinct. There's 168 precincts in Clermont County. Today, there's about 155 members of the Central Committee. There's some open spots. And then there's a thing called the Executive Committee, which is also statutorily required, and it has 16 voting members in Clermont County. Okay, so, and it's done by townships and municipalities, non-villages, like generally speaking. So like Milford, Loveland, and then the 14 townships that exist in Clermont County. And then I just put down here, what's a PAC? A PAC is something that you declare with the Board of Elections. So, you have all these members, you have these people that get elected by these people, okay, and then you have these people that are defined by these people, what group? So in Clermont County, that is one person per township in the two cities, Loveland and Milford. And for example, Hamilton County, at least last time I checked, this was like a group made up by then Alex Trenefilu, and it included any Republican elected official. They weren't even on the Central Committee. So the people here don't need to, I'm sorry, the people, I'm putting the wrong column. The people here don't need to be on the Central Committee. The Central Committee can define an executive committee however they want. Okay, that might not matter that much, but information, background on how things work or how it's set up. And I say, these are not, I'm involved with a lot of issues involving this and this, and I just want to point out and reinforce, these things have to exist by statute. They're required. This is not required. Anybody in this room could go start a PAC. Okay? This has a certain requirement, is that you have to pull more than 3% in the gubernatorial election. But the ones in the middle, they are defined by statute. And I rattled off, there's a bunch of different functions they have. So the executive committee, I'll give you an example. By statute, the executive committee is who makes recommendations to the Secretary of State on who should be the Board of Elections members. The Board of Elections has 4 members. So it's legally required there's an executive committee. And people go like, well, why do they need to have an executive committee? Well, there's actually a statutory function for an executive committee specific to that. And there's statutory functions here. There's things like determining what their term is. It can be 4-year or 2-year. There's options. What kind of petitions required? But ultimately, this all appears on a ballot. People vote for it on a ballot. Okay? And if you're a major party, you have to do that. You can't not do it. So does that help at least, ma'am, with what it is? So the executive committee, the central committee in Clermont County is about 155 members. 55 members. So its actual name is the Clermont County Republican Central and Executive Committee. That's the actual name of the Central Committee here in Clermont County. Clermont County Republican Central and Executive Committee. 1 person per precinct. The people on it, under statute, are defined as party officials. You're supposed to be a qualified elector in the precinct that you represent. There's a bunch of statutory functions, but also a statutory definition as you address party affairs. And then subject to all kind of laws and rules. And by the way, those laws and rules, people go like, it's government interference. The laws and rules stand up. Wisconsin has a very similar system as Ohio, and it stood up in federal court because the laws and rules are content and speech neutral. They don't make the party have to do anything or not do something. There's some cases in California a long time ago, believe it or not, they tried to have a law that the Central Committee in California could not do endorsements at all. The Central Committee, actually against the Democrats. And the Democrats sued, and then that restriction of government got blocked by the courts because it was not content neutral. It's saying what you can say and what you can do or what you can't do. So that's a little background on the Clermont County Republican Central and Executive Committee. So there's a thing called the Clermont County Republican Party, and I'm not going to get into it too much. But those of you that have been on Central Committee know this has to do with me. It's very controversial because what I did, so let's jump back. I don't know if all of you know this, but I don't know, this would be insulting to these people, but I'm kind of like the closest thing to the Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene of the Republican Central Committee in Clermont County. Okay? And the funny part is, and I'm despised for this. Okay, I am despised for this. And the funny part is, somebody said, I think it was Don, is it? You know, it's easy to get on Central Committee. I faced a professional run campaign against me with an outside political consultant for Central Committee. Okay? And I still won by like 2/3 of the vote. In my precinct, I'm very well known as the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz type person. That's why I get elected. Because I've managed to inform people in my precinct as to what the issues are, and they want reform. But I'm currently suspended. So even though I'm elected, the Central Committee will not let me vote. Okay? And it's repeatedly trying to get me arrested in meetings. You can watch the videos online. So, being the tenacious guy that I am, I'm like, okay, and this, I'm not trying to go fast, but I just happened to notice along the way that the Clermont County Republican Central and Executive Committee had never filed anything under the name Clermont County Republican Party. I alerted them. This is typical comedy routine that goes on. I alerted them, gave them 10 days to go file The name, they never filed it, I filed it. And I got a name registration from the Secretary of State, Clermont County Republican Party, because I want to help illustrate that the party is not just those people, the party is the people that vote the primaries. It's not an inside clique of only 155 people. Those people are supposed to be the ones representing you, not manipulating you, okay, not using you, okay? So that's just a quick background on that. I'm going to skip past this. This has to do with the filings that, and you'll see it online if you want to put it out there. So what's wrong right now? And there's some Central Committee members here that could probably add to anything I'm going to say. I use this as emblematic of what's wrong. So this was the Clermont County Republican Central Committee logo. Don't look at this one yet. That's secret. And notice it's very creative. It says Clermont County Central Committee, and then it says Clermont County, Ohio 4 times around, just in case you're confused on where we're located. So there was a time, me and the most hated guy, the Matt Gates, Martin Taylor Green guy, put forward to change the logo to this logo. Instead of say Clermont County 4 times around it, because we already say it, and we already highlight a map, why don't we put some of the things we stand for around the circle? So that got adopted. Then at a meeting that I was not at, because I'm suspended, I come to the meetings, but I was both not at it and I was suspended, that was repealed because supposedly my beautiful wife there had some scheme to blackmail the party for money for that logo, which she never even made. She changed the words in the circle. So now this is the logo again for the Clermont County Republican Central Executive Committee, which is emblematic to me of what's wrong. There are people, I think, that don't stand for anything. They don't want to stand for anything. If they had to become pro-abortion to get elected, they become pro-abortion. Tom Brinkman, former state rep, told me one time that when you live in an all-red county, when it starts to go blue, it happens fast. He's like, you think it's going to happen 1 or 2 at a time? He's like, he told me it'll go 30, 40% Democrat almost overnight in the blink of an eye. Why? Because when you're an all-red county, if you are a Democrat but you want to get elected for office, you have to act like you're a Republican. And as soon as it becomes clear that you can get in office without acting like a Republican, which you never were, you can do whatever you want. He's like, so don't have any illusion. He's like, 30 to 40% of your elected officials in Clermont County are not Republicans. I like the Dan Bongino when he talks about the Congress, where he says, remember, how does he say it? There's not a single, most Republicans in Congress are actually Democrats, but not a single Democrat in Congress is actually a Republican. You can say that for our legislature. Look at this thing going on right now. Why the hell didn't we ban foreign money in issue elections decades ago? It's been banned forever in campaigns. So when you look at those issue ones and the rope-a-dope that gets played on us, why didn't they pass a law to ban outside money in those? Why now? So this is emblematic of some of the problems. So there's a lot of problems, and there's a thing called cronyism. Okay, there's witch hunts. There is corruption. There's suspension like me. And by the way, I think that people have brought up to me is that I'm also a symbol. The stuff that happens to me where I'm literally like worried about getting arrested for real is also sends a signal to everybody else on the committee. Keep your mouth shut. By the way, one of the things, if you follow conservative media, frankly, if you follow some left-wing media that are not crazies, you'll get the same thing. It's like, one of the things that's happening is we're afraid to say stuff. That's the first part of totalitarian censorship. Self-censorship. You don't speak up anymore because you're afraid of what will happen to you and your family. There was an assault in a meeting. I wasn't at the meeting. I had nothing to do with it. Yes, Kyle?
Can you define cronyism?
Cronyism means that an organization that basically operates for the benefit of an insider group.
Click.
A clique. And I would say if you're on central committee, you realize that you can be on central committee and you can do things to help and you can do whatever. But if you want to run for office and you're not part of that crony clique, it ain't gonna happen. And there's a few people we can talk after that control that cronyism. I swear, I tell people, he doesn't live in Clermont County, so it's not a good example. But I said, if Ken Oakes from TQL, like an Elon Musk type, came forward and went and get involved in Clermont County politics, other than giving money, he wouldn't be able to. Because he's not part of the crony club. By the way, what is a crony club like? Damaged people. People like Archie Wilson, they knew Archie Wilson had problems. They like those kind of people. Who remembers Archie Wilson? Okay? They like those kind of people. Why? People with stuff in the closet are easy to control. Easy to control. Canceled events, like Lincoln Day. Meeting chaos. Rigged, I just like the word rigged, since Trump says rigged, this is a new word. When somebody says convicted felon, you say rigged. Self-serving, and pretty much completely ignores Robert's Rules of Order. There's other people in here, and we're gonna do some voting, but can comment. But it's literally, I used to joke, but it's really become almost like a communist politburo. The rules change on the minute by minute. One person can say something they're not allowed. Another person do the same thing, they're allowed. It's crazy what goes on in there. By the way, if you saw in the media, I was labeled as racist by the party in conjunction with their teammate, the Cincinnati NAACP, that they reached out to claim that I was racist. By the way, anybody who knows me knows that's ridiculous. And if you want to hear a story about it, I had a party at my house one time where somebody said something inappropriate, and I can tell you a story about what happened. Okay? So that's kind of some of the dysfunction. Is there any people that are on the committee? Is there any dysfunction I missed?
Boatloads? I don't know. One of the biggest ones, but it kind of ties in with what you said about the Robert's Rules. We have a constitution. When they want something passed, they'll go, how many people want to suspend the Constitution? That happens a lot. Well, why have a constitution? So they actually not going to follow the Robert's Rules.
Yes.
What they'll do is they'll have a vote.
To suspend the Constitution.
We're going to suspend the Constitution. How many's for it? And everybody's going to raise their hand, and how many against? And they'll just go right on, and then the next thing you know, once that's passed, they'll reinstate the Constitution. And when you want something done, well, we can't do that because it's against the Constitution.
Okay, man.
Well, like, is there a boss of the central committee? Like, is
Yeah, his
everyone
name's Jeff
equal?
Corcoran.
No, not everyone.
boss?
It's supposed to be.
Is everyone supposed to have equal pull on the
Yes.
committee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but is that true?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Well, who votes in the top boss guy? Someone has to set the schedule, someone has to set what we're voting on, what we're discussing. Who does that?
The committee voted in the top boss guy.
Okay,
Then the top boss guy sets everything.
okay.
The thing, those of you that have had committee experience before, historically, most committees, there's a central committee chair, and basically their role is to run the meetings. Okay? There's always politics, but they basically run the meeting. They're like the Speaker of the House. Okay? And then there's the party chair that's supposed to get people to buy into a vision of what we're going to do and all that kind of stuff. Right now in Clermont County, there's basically one person that runs everything.
And who is that?
Jeff Corcoran.
Wait a minute, because
Oh, he's this guy.
Okay, because
The white-haired
He's
guy.
this guy.
oh, the white hair.
The white-haired guy.
He's from Goshen.
Lawyer.
Yes.
Yes. And his wife's a commissioner.
Yes.
Okay?
I mean, under the central committee, when they see the new central committee, they basically go through and vote the officers. There's,
Right.
I guess, the chair, the secretary, and everything else goes down on it. So it's not like the one person is made the boss, they're voted by. But like you say, with the cronyism and things like that,
Well, they're voted also by, I don't want to get into detail, but there's a reorganization meeting right after the election, and that's when they get voted, and it tends to be based on blocks. I don't know if people on the committee all realize this, but for example, Linda Fraley controls a huge block of votes. And so whoever she says for her people to vote for, that's who's gonna get in. Okay?
And Gene Schmidt controls a big block of votes. It's my whole thing, personally, my thing with this is that you vote on almost the very next meeting. Somebody like Corcoran stands up and says, well, I want to be the chair. We don't know you from Shinola, and we don't have time to vet anybody. It's like, okay, here, put somebody new in.
Yeah, and this is my first term on the committee, and I just talked to other people in the precinct and got their recommendations, because I didn't know anybody. And that's who I voted for, and I kind of regret my vote now, but
I abstain.
I think the key thing is, like, if you're on the committee, is you expect, what you would like to think is that when it's a small group of people like that they're all on the same, love of county, love of country, that kind of thing. When in reality, a lot of it is like there's elected officials that get a lot of their staff on the committee.
Oh, yeah.
So then they control a block of those, that way. So it's a very, it is what it is, but it's also like, you have to push back on things. When people are breaking the rules, like, not letting people make motions, Jeff Corcoran announced yesterday, two things, because of Trump's getting convicted, there's two things we need to do. One is come to a meeting about a thing called Bank the Vote, which I have no idea how that relates to Trump at all. And the second thing is that he's suspending anything but campaign talk during the meetings from now on in the election. So the typical, what's funny is I don't think it matters, sometimes Republicans or Democrats, there's a tyrannical bent. And I was telling somebody beforehand that this thing with Trump in weaponizing the legal system, don't believe that there's not a lot of Republicans. We'd like to say, like, well, we want Republicans to fight back, but they'll use it just against whoever their opponents are. And a lot of the people, once they're in power, they're people in power, and that's what they care most about, is power. So I just want to keep rolling here, and I apologize if I'm not giving a good enough introduction to some of these things or background. So there are 7 reform areas. If you came here, you probably saw something that was a list of reform areas. And this is where I start having some, voting with the keypads, assuming I set it up right. I used to do this a lot around the world. I haven't done it in a while, so I'm hoping I set it up right. And so we're going to talk quickly about each of these 7 reform areas. Some of that will help give you background on what's working, not working, what's good or what's bad in here. And some of you might have some experience with other counties or personal experiences with what's good and bad about these different things. Those keypads, I don't steal them. I don't use them that much, but they cost like $60 each. So don't steal them, okay? If you forget, take one with you. One time I had somebody, I would go to South Africa, and I lost like 3 keypads, just were gone. I came back like a year later, and somebody gave them back to me. They had collected them up, that people had accidentally walked out of the room with them, and it's like, what? So when you vote on the keypads, every time you get asked a question, you press, and you watch for the number you press to light up on the little 1-digit display. It goes out, and it lights up again. That shows that your vote was registered. The second is it confirming your vote was registered. If it blinks an E, that means it didn't register your vote, that's error, then do it again. And if you change your mind, this is an inevitable question. I voted and I didn't close the vote yet, and it's like, oh, I wanted to vote something else. Whatever the last thing you vote on a given question is what it records for you. So if you vote again, if you vote for one and then you vote again before I close the voting on a question, it'll record your last vote. So if you make a mistake or something like that. Okay? And let's talk about central committee membership. And I'm going to use this just to kind of get us going. This says, what best describes you? I'm going to read off the answers, and then you're going to press 1 through 5 on your keypad. You can always abstain. 0 is abstain. You never have to vote. It's all anonymous. I'm currently on this Clermont County Republican Central Committee as 1. I'm currently on the committee elected to the committee is 1. I'm currently on the committee appointed to the committee. And those who are on the committee know who you are, the difference between that. That's 2. I'm not on the CCRCC now, but I have been in the past. I'm not on the CCRCC, but am or have been on a different central committee, like in another county, and I've never been on any central committee. So those are the 5 options. And I'm gonna keep, down here it shows how many keypads have voted. I think we probably handed out about 40 keypads, so I'm just gonna watch down there. You don't have to vote on anything. So then I'll just move on when we've done it. Okay. So we have 30 people who have never been on a central committee. 4 people are not on the central committee now, but have been. 7 people are on it now as elected, and 2 people are on it now as appointed. Okay? So that's how nobody abstained. So that's just a little intro to how the voting works. Pretty painless. Makes sense to everybody. Okay? So most of us have never been on any central committee, so this is all new information to you. So I'm going to try to, as I go, I'm going to try to pace us, so if I seem to go fast at times, it's because I'm trying to get out of here so we can get to the book sale next door. So, you know, the reform thing on the card that you either saw or got said end invalid appointments and add at-large members. So right now on the central committee, and you're going to get asked what you think should be done. By the way, in each one of these things, we'll talk about reform, we can have a little quick discussion, then you get to vote on what reform, if any, you think should take place. So, invalid appointments. What happens now on the Clermont County Central Committee is people get appointed that don't live in the precincts that they're supposedly representing. Quite a few of those people are employees or relatives of elected officials. Typically, after every central committee election, there's 30 or 40 seats that nobody ran for, and then those get used. There has been discussion, some counties have what's called an at-large member that's not statutory, but they'll create at-large positions. And there's a huge resistance to that. You might be like, well, why? If people want to get involved, at-large positions, you know, you're limited to 168. At-large positions would allow you to add however many you wanted. You know, and I think it's because that 30 to 40 number is a good number for being able to control things. If you let people add 100 at-large members, God forbid, insiders could lose control because a bunch of people get on the committee through that means. So that's, but today you have members that don't live in the precinct they purport to represent, and we don't have at-large members in Clermont County. Some counties, a lot of counties, I don't know how many actually, some percentage of counties, probably at least 20, 25% have at-large members that don't have statutory responsibilities on the committee, but can vote on things based on what the committee's constitution says they can vote on. So that's the quick background on that. Does anybody that's on the committee have any, you know, if you think about this area of central committee membership, we're going to talk about other aspects of central committee. Anybody else here that's on the committee that can think of something else that they think is an important reform that needs to happen just related to membership? Who's members? Yes, sir.
I just wondered if you have a suggestion for the townships that have, or precincts have people appointed are because nobody ran. Do you have any suggestions on how to get people that live in the district to run?
Yes. So I think that in Clermont County, you know, I went to a church evangelism thing once on how to grow a church that was dying. And one of the things was one of the things to avoid is don't care starts the show. Like things that your parishioners that come there forever don't notice, but somebody coming there new notices, like that the steps are falling apart at the back door. Or that this looks like crap, okay? I'm gonna start before I get to suggestions on the notion that in Clermont County, as Republicans, we should consider it unacceptable that there aren't people from every precinct in this county, because every precinct has Republicans in it. There's precincts in Hamilton County that don't have any Republicans. You know, in Hamilton County, and most of the urban counties, I think Hamilton is like 500 maybe, they range between 300, I think Cuyahoga County's 900 open committee seats. Because some of the big urban counties have literally thousands of precincts, and there aren't Republicans in a lot of the precincts in the first place. So I think step one is our committee having the view that it is unacceptable to not find somebody in every precinct to represent that precinct. go door to door for that, we should do that. If that means we have a system by which we send out letters to Republican voters in those precincts saying, we need somebody in your precinct to represent it on the central committee, then we should do that. I think a lot of times it's a cop-out, well, nobody wants to do it for this committee, so Linda Fraley's staff member needs to do it. Right? It is a very big cop-out. She raised her hand first, yes, ma'am.
Me? Yeah.
Yes.
When Gloria Barton got married and moved to, Union Township, I live in her precinct, and I spoke with my, township person about applying for her seat in Central Committee, and I was told not to.
In Stoneway. You live in Stoneway, okay.
I was told not to, because someone else had already been picked.
Well, there's somebody in Stoneway, you know, Bill Shields?
No.
This guy named Bill Shields. He accidentally messed up his petition running for central committee. Nobody else ran for the thing. Then they wanted to appoint him.
I think he was.
And he was on the committee before, and he screwed up his petition. You know, if you screw up your petition, you're not on the ballot. And so then they wanted to appoint him. You had it, Tracy.
What I was gonna say, to your point, sending out flyers, letters, I think that's a perfect idea, because so many people are just ignorant. It's not stupidity, it's ignorance, they just don't know.
Correct.
A lot of people don't even know what central committee is, what it does. If you can inform people and let them know, be engaged in your community, have a big piece in how things get sorted out, like, I think that would, I guarantee you people would come sign up for that.
Well,
So
if
it's
you
just
just
making
had
people aware.
signs, another thing I'd suggest is, let's say you had little political signs like these Trump ones that said, you put at the end of the streets in the neighborhood, said, we
Yep.
need somebody to represent the Republican Party from this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Call this number.
Yep.
Okay, somebody driving by, Magnet.
When I first was on Central Committee, it was because I was part of the Tea Party, and the Tea Party said we need to work on Central Committee. So I ran in my precinct, and I was elected. And when I went on to Central Committee, they did not want anybody from the Tea Party who wasn't part of the insider group, because they had appointed all those people. My precinct person prior to me was an accounting employee who didn't live in the precinct. So they don't want, my experience was they don't want outsiders. And when I ran this time, they found someone to run against me who had just moved to the precinct because they didn't like the fact that I was on there.
And did somebody else have their hand up? Yes, sir.
So, this is my first time having anything to do with this or understanding what's going on, but it seems to me like maybe part of the problem with the central committee is the same problem we have in Congress, and that's people that get in there and stay forever. So maybe we need term limits, and that way people like, this Jeff Corcoran guy
Right.
he can't be there forever and camp out and control
Okay.
everything.
Well, the problem is that this is his first time.
Well, he's been on the
And this is
I
my,
think it's the
this is
second
my,
time.
I haven't seen it before, I know
Yeah.
that.
All right, so back here, back here.
Just real quick, Chris.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I have to read, but I was wondering, what is the bottom line of what is your impetus for why we're meeting today? What are you gonna do with the information? And,
Well, I think that's, I'll call you at the end when we're done.
well, that should maybe be at the very beginning as to.
Well, I think I said
why
we're
are
going
people here?
to try to figure out what we might agree on as reform ideas for the Clermont County
So
Republican
are
Central and Executive
these
Committee.
people-
And the first of the 7 areas is this area.
Okay, and this will be melded into the new, Clermont County Republican Party organization?
It's gonna get melded into somewhere.
So you have the new 2024.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep moving on because if you gotta go, you gotta
Okay.
go.
I do
But I
have to
can't
go,
pause
but-
and let's get to the end of the meeting because you gotta go now.
Establish something brand new in 2024, the Republican Party. So I think you need to let the people know, as to what all this information, where it's getting funneled into.
And I think
So-
people that are here until noontime will understand that. So,
Okay.
okay, all right, yes.
So have
Yeah.
have you been able to look at any other counties that is working? I mean, have you looked at any of the counties and say, wow, Brown County is really doing
I think that Brown County works pretty well, but I'm not, so they have a committee of the whole for their executive committee. The best committees, I think, have the executive central committees are the same, body, et cetera, so, but we'll come back to that some. So, yes, sir.
What's preventing them from, with the at-large members, okay, so it's the same situation.
I think the biggest thing, so Gloria Kirker wanted at-large members, the biggest thing that holds up, I'm sorry, I'm trying to go as to how many people, and you can just have a vote in a meeting, we're gonna add these 10 more people as at-large members, you suddenly could change the dynamics of the vote.
Do they have to live in certain precincts?
At-large members typically in other counties, no. They're just their at-large members.
What about here, if you're wanting?
That would have to be defined, but generally, the at-large term means not assigned to a specific
Well, it's the
location.
same situation, they can still, the Linda Fraley's and stuff can call her.
That's
friends
right.
and say, do the same thing, so it's not really, you're not stopping it from happening.
So we're gonna talk about what some of the options, because one of the options would be don't allow at-large members and only have people within their precincts and keep it at 168 and quit doing the invalid appointments. If I was in charge of the world, that's probably what I would do. Okay?
I have a problem with elected officials being on central committee.
Okay.
Why? Why
And we're
are
gonna
they?
talk about that, that's a separate reform topic, who's on the committee, okay? All right, I'm not meaning to go too fast, or get to the end, but, because it might be, this is some information to get you going, enough to be dangerous, to understand some of the things going on. But I have a question here, which reform would you most support? So your question was right at the perfect time, okay? 1, no change from the current situation. Elected and appointed members that are not from their precinct. That's 1. 2, elected only with no appointments. By the way, I believe the Hamilton County Democrats do that. They quit allowing appointments because they got involved in a lawsuit about appointments, and I don't believe they allow appointments now. They did, they might have changed it, but elected only, no appointments. So that would mean precincts that were vacant in an election would stay vacant. Elected only and in precinct appointments only. So elected plus appoint people, but they have to live in the precinct that they're being appointed to represent. Is number 3. And then number 4, elected only in precinct appointments, but add at large. So 1 is same. 2 is only have elected people. 3 have elected people and appointed people that are from their precincts. And then 4 is also do that and add at large.
Are there qualifications for at large?
Those would be defined, yes, there would have to be. If you're gonna add at large, you have to define stuff. I'm gonna go fast, so you couldn't just say, Democrats could be at large members. And this is not a scientific exercise. You're not committed to, you're not picking your for life option. When it gets to about 40, that's when I'm gonna go forward. Okay, so we've got, nobody likes the current way. 16 people elected with no appointments, 24 people in precinct appointments up, and 3 people add. So that gives pretty much a sense that this group feels that it should operate with, by and large, between these 2. Okay? If you were having a vote, these people here, would not vote for this, nobody would vote for that. Okay? And you've got these 2 options are the 2 big options. No appointments and appointments only, elected and appointments only when the person is in their precinct. So again, I'm gonna summarize all this, and right now we're just getting a little bit dangerous in terms of what do we actually think? What do we actually think? I love to use this type of approach because even though obviously I have some influence by talking about the stuff, ultimately you guys decide what's the priority. Okay? All right. Any additional discussion on central committee membership? Remember, this is just one of 7 areas, so. Ed?
That elected by, elected only, I agree 100% with. And somebody mentioned education, people don't know about the central committee. So in that case, it's very important that in precinct appointments only, when they do discover something about central committee, they still have an opportunity to join the central committee.
Yeah, that's why I voted for number 3, is I think people should be able to be appointed once they're informed, as long as you're in the precinct so you can represent where you live.
Right.
That's of the utmost importance, I think.
John, different.
Just a very quick comment. I like one of you guys' ideas about sending letters out to everyone in a precinct to get them to run. That gets very expensive.
Yep.
Email.
Yes, sir.
I guess my question is, who's doing this in precinct appointed? If it's the
The
people
central
that,
committee appoints the
but
people
if
are
the
already on
cronies-
appoints.
the crony and large group are running everything, they're still gonna be
I
doing the
have, so Mike,
appointments.
I got,
at least with
I'm saying this facetiously, there ain't any reforms we're gonna come up here that's gonna make politics a clean, totally clean thing.
Well, I
What we
guess
can
my-
do is we can make it a little cleaner, so it's more likely that regular people have a chance.
Yeah, I guess my thought was, if it's elected only, at least the cronies in power have no say-so in it. It's we, the people, that are.
Well, that's a
doing
good
the
point.
election.
Now, I'm gonna keep going here, and I don't want anybody to get like, oh, it's going fast, when I did this kind of stuff professionally, you might have a vote like this on strategy for a company, and then you talk about it, then you vote again. Because sometimes when people talk, now we kind of know where people are, and you all know where people are. So you've got people talking, well, I voted for 2, I voted for 3. And we might talk some and vote again and come up with a different answer, because people, by the way, that's a kind of deliberative thing we've lost the ability to do in America. Okay, and to figure out where we are and figure out what's a reasonable solution. Okay, so I'm gonna keep running. Ed, if you go, important,
Real quick,
fast.
a lot of people that don't know about central committee, Williamsburg has a 5-member central committee within the central committee. Union Township has 20-some.
38.
38. So think of it that way. Williamsburg.
There's radical differences in the sizes. The Union Township Committee is as big as the entire Brown County Committee.
Yeah.
Just one township, because Union Township has more population than the entire county. Miami Township probably has about the same or more population than Brown County does in total. Yes, sir?
No,
Okay.
I'm in, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about leadership as the second reform area. And I'm again gonna try to go fast. I don't want us to go past the time. And if I offend anybody, talk to my wife. I like that sign at Jungle Gym. You see that sign at Jungle Gym with the crowd says, any complaints, call my wife, and has a phone number up there. Leadership. So there's a leadership, there's the executive committee chair, the central committee chair, the executive committee vice chair, the central committee vice chair, the treasurer, and the secretary. That's the leadership. Okay. These are the people that are in those rules. It doesn't really matter for sake right now of our discussion. And this is on the cards where no elected officials or spouses in leadership and impartiality in the central committee chair. Okay, so if you look at this, most of these are not elected officials or spouses, but David Painter's the commissioner. Jeff Corcoran is so he's supposed to be the top in charge, although he does it. Corcoran that runs everything. So Painter, commissioner, Corcoran, husband of commissioner, Rick Grant on the Board of Elections, and then they say Byron Backer, Joe Eakers, a former senator, and Tammy Brinkman's the secretary. They're not in any office or any appointment. By the way, another thing in politics, if you didn't realize this, is appointments to things where you get health care and money. Okay, so like Board of Elections is one of those things. You get appointed to Board of Elections, and those are typically party insiders that get those appointments. So the thing on the card was no elected officials or spouses in leadership. Somebody had the question like they didn't like elected officials being on I can't remember who said, on the committee, okay? You really can't control that because the qualifications of office are defined in statute, and there's no restriction in the qualifications of office for any relationship.
But
Does that
then
make
the
sense?
committee is the one that decides who should be elected.
No, so hold on. The committee, just so everybody understands this, every 4 years in Clermont County, you vote on your ballot, on precinct day, on who's on the committee. So the people in the committee only elect the leadership.
But they also give money and they make endorsements on candidates. But then the candidates are in the committee.
So just being on the committee, so I'm just making a factual observation right now, whether it's right, wrong, or different, is that in terms of getting elected to a central committee, it's based on statutory qualifications of office, of which you could not restrict an elected official from being on the committee, because there is no such qualification of office. And by the way, you would run into all kind of other things too, like what happens if somebody's on the committee and then they got elected to office, for example. So the two things, you can be a member without, by statute, without the qualification of office, you have to be a Republican, you have to live in your precinct. Yes, ma'am?
The people that are listed here,
Yes.
are they elected or have they been appointed?
They're all elected, I think. These are all elected. Now, there's been a lot of change. We're on our third chairman, or our second or third chairman. third chairman of this term, okay? But because these elections happen immediately following the election where you vote on the ballots at the organizational meeting, at that moment in time that these people get elected, the only members are elected. Does that make any sense? There haven't been any appointments yet. So these people, by generally definition, they're always gonna be elected members because they get the election of the officers happens in the very first meeting before there are
I'm
ever any
talking
appointments.
about, are they elected into the central committee? Or
Yes.
are they appointed?
Yes,
Because you said that it's on our ballot every 4 years.
correct,
So all of those were voted in.
correct.
I
To the
think,
committee.
I think I understand your question, and I can explain. These people, the precinct, all of you vote on who you want your precinct chair, captain or chair to be.
Okay.
Then at that reorg, all of those people who were elected by their precinct go to the, first meeting. All those precinct people, then they elect out of that body who they want these people to be.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah,
But what
so-
I was getting at is by definition, usually all your officers are going to be elected in the election because you have put them in officers in the first meeting after the election. And there haven't been any people appointed at all in the committee.
by the entire central committee.
Right, yes, they're elected by the central committee, not by.
Well, see, what I'm getting at is the people that go in and vote.
They don't vote on this.
No, they don't get to vote on
Okay.
elections.
So Jeff Corcoran is just like me. He's elected to represent his precinct.
But, so you were voted on to,
Correct.
okay, so that's my question. All these people were elected by the people to be in the central committee.
Correct.
Correct.
And then they get elected to be officers.
Okay.
Okay? And now, for example, on our third chairman, David Payne is our third chairman. Technically, somebody who was appointed could probably be chairman because now there's been a lot of appointments to the, so.
But that's not right. For someone that's been appointed, do you think that's right?
A lot of party constitutions forbid that, that only an elected member can be in an officer position. Kind of like you can't run for president if you're a naturalized citizen type of thing. But anyway, I'm gonna keep rolling because we're only on 2 and so I wanna make sure we stay on time. So here's another question. Which would you support? Read partisan political office. Before you start voting, let me tell you this too. There's also, I should have said this already, there's also partisan political office and nonpartisan office. Does anybody know the difference? What's an example of a nonpartisan office? Technically, no.
Clerk
Judges are
reports,
partisan. No. Well, clerk reports, the municipal one is. The most obvious, let me help. Township trustees and school board members. Township trustees and school board members are nonpartisan office. Okay? Anything else is basically partisan office. Like judges have primaries for common pleas judges, but then there's nuances because they do things in statute, politicians do to make like our clerk reports for municipal courts is nonpartisan, blah, 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 blah. So, but generally speaking, the big distinction would be like township trustees and school board members are nonpartisan office. They're kind of lower level offices. Actually, I think school board is the most important office, but when in the political system, they represent small areas, not the whole county or something like that, or a big district. So this is talking particularly right now about partisan political office, but we can talk more about it later. It says, which option would you most likely support? No change from the current. Elected officials and or their spouses can be in leadership. That's 1. 2 is disallow elected officials in leadership, but allow spouses of elected officials. And 3 is disallow elected officials and their spouses in leadership. Based on what you know now, it's not scientific. We're not
We
gonna
have more choices.
Those are the choices. If I didn't make good choices, it's my fault. But talk to my wife about it. I normally have my wife look at stuff I do so she can give me feedback. I did not have her look at this, but blame her. Yes, sir.
Is the question, I'm confused on what this question is asking. Is the question wanting or aiming towards disallowing elected officials to be in that membership group?
To be in leadership.
That's what it said.
Well, there's 2 different things. Membership is 168. Leadership is the 5 or 6 names I have.
Right.
Like the chair, the vice chair, the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, and the
But
secretary.
what I see up there is disallow, no change.
No change would allow elected officials and their spouses to be in leadership. Okay?
Who would be in the leadership role if we pick 3?
That's exactly what we're thinking.
Not let, yeah, not letting Gene Schmidt be.
Chair, vice chair.
Thank you. Sometimes you gotta dump it out first and then.
So for example, Gene Schmidt's probably more illuminating, but like David Tanner's a county commissioner. He's also the chair of the party. Should that be okay or not? That elected officials can be, and you know, I might not have described this, but you always get, by the way, I know how I feel on this one, you could feel differently, is you always get this thing is when you have these elected officials, there tends to be a confusion on, are they worried about their next election or the long-term health of the party? Right? And that's the difference between the remember, the politicians, can be one of our topics, the way I look at it, they're supposed to work for us. They're necessary evils. They are the necessary evils. They're not our bosses. Okay, got 43, let's see what we said. Okay, so there was 2 abstains, and 1 wants no change, and 41 to disallow. Okay.
I was gonna vote for 2, but I didn't get that. So I would've been your 1 on 2.
Okay. So, any additional discussion on this one? I'm gonna again try to go fast through these. The second area hopefully makes you think about it. Comments or discussion? Okay. Primary endorsement's the third area, and this is the most controversial area. Okay? So, you know what we have, I have long said, now most everybody disagrees with me, by the way, but I've long said party endorsements and primaries are the root of all evil. Okay, it's what causes bizarre things to happen at State Central Committee with Mike DeWine and transfers of money, and you know, party endorsement and the primaries. And I've always had the long view of like, the primaries are supposed to be like the tryouts for the Olympic team. Everybody competes fairly, the people that are the best, they get the endorsement, and that should mean something because in the general election, we're gonna ram you into office. Okay? And so I also believe in fair, open, and vibrant primaries. I think they make us better. I think when Trump, I'm a super Trump guy, when Trump was in the primary and just handing their asses to him in 2016 in debates, it was great that we had an open primary like that. I don't mean open like anybody, but a primary that was competitive. It made me think, it made me want to pay attention, it makes people get more engaged. They get less engaged when there's none of that. You know, except of course with Joe Biden, when you basically have no real primary, but you get the most votes ever in the history of the United States. So primary endorsement, before I go on, there's a question on this. You know, I'm going to show a little background. This is what typically is an endorsement card. So in Clermont County, unlike other counties, a fair number of parties do some sort of endorsement in a primary. In Clermont County, we have probably the most closed system because at the polling location, you get handed this card and you're told to vote this way. And I've been at polling locations a lot of times when people walk up, it's a Republican primary, they walk up like, are these the Republican candidates? Like, yeah. People go, yes. I'm like, it's a Republican primary. Everybody on your ballot. Okay? So that's a typical card. By the way, this is the most recent one. Notice what it says down here, paid for by the Clermont County Republican Central Executive Committee. The real name. Okay? I'm going to show another one here. This is from when I ran in the primary against Linda Fraley. Look what it says here, paid for by the Clermont County Republican Party. It's never existed until I registered. So for years, they've used this disclaimer that's not correct. They changed it this election. Because I was breathing down their throats on you're not doing your disclaimers right. But here's what happens in primaries too. When I ran against Linda Fraley in the primary in 2018 for auditor, I was going to win. She wasn't endorsed. She paid $5,000. They put her on the card. There was a committeeman revolt. A lot of the precincts were not manned by their committeemen. But if you walk there were friendly people wearing Linda Fraley t-shirts that had these cards with her name highlighted in yellow highlighter on them. And if I didn't say it already, they canceled 2 nothing to do with betterment of Clermont County, it has to do with their own political operations. But that's what happened with primary endorsement in 2018. I ended up losing, okay, and was shocked at my own polling location. There was a guy there handing out cards, wearing a Fraley t-shirt. I had no idea who it was. I asked him, like, who are you? Like, are you from around here? No. Like, where are you from? I can't tell you. Like, are you getting paid to be here? I won't tell you. It was bizarre, okay? But they were very afraid I was gonna win because she had not been endorsed, okay? So, the thing here says primary endorsement at the very least, after the filing deadline and open to the public. So, of the parties that do primary endorsement, I have not found another one, other than Clermont County, and I love it, that does the primary endorsement prior to the filing deadline. So think about this for a second. The history in Clermont County, of those of you who've been around, is that endorsement happens before the filing deadline, and anybody who is not endorsed is not supposed to file to run in the primary. Okay? And that's the way the system worked, and if you ever got handed one of these cards, and then go into the polls during primary day, and you're voting, you go like, hold on a second here, there's only one name in most of these offices. Even though I got this card showing me all these names, I'm realizing there's only one person running for prosecutor, there's only one person running for this, one person running for this. Because the system blackballed anybody who ran. It's not as the same now, but it's still the same in a lot of ways. There was an era in which anybody that ran when they were not endorsed got blackballed for the future forever. Go ask a lawyer in Batavia named Sue Ellen Bradford about that. She ran for judge when she wasn't supposed to and got blackballed. Okay? So this says at least after the filing deadline. I've yet to find other counties where they don't have their endorsement be open to the public. Clermont County, it's a closed meeting where only the central committee can be there. And so most, like Brown County, they have it set up, they have all their members, and then they have like a peanut gallery for anybody that wants to observe. And then occasionally they go into like executive session where they want to talk as a committee without on an endorsement. Most counties too that I've run into generally avoid doing endorsements in the primary. So like Brown County only does a few typically. They really only do it if they think somebody's particularly bad. Like there's a problem. And they a lot of times only do it when there's some race that's a cross county or cross district race. So for example, the 12th District Court of Appeals is like a bunch of counties. So typically if the judge were running from Brown County, they're going to endorse that judge because they want their person to win, but it's a multi-county race. But in Clermont County, they're closed to the public, the endorsement meetings, and they are like who has a description who's on the committee of what it's like going through the endorsement meeting? Yeah, went till 2 o'clock in the morning.
The other question they always ask the candidates, or potential candidates at the primary endorsement, they ask the pointed question, if you're not endorsed, will you drop out of the race? And if you say yes, you're okay. If you say no, you get less votes.
Hey, a really good example of this, and I'm watching the clock, so I'm going to speed up here. I keep saying I'm going to speed up, I'm really going to speed up. Is the prosecutor Colby has never been in a competitive race. When he first ran, there were three people going to run. Him, Darren Miller, and Aaron Moss. When he got endorsed, neither of those two filed, and he's never had an opponent, Republican or Democrat, ever. It's not healthy because then he never had to answer questions. As a candidate, you learn a lot, you develop a lot of your things because people are asking you questions about stuff. What would you do in this situation? Would you go for the death penalty? Would you do this? Would you do that? You have to think. When you never have an opponent, you don't need to think.
And we endorsed in gross for those people that were
Correct.
unopposed this past
Yeah, if they're unopposed, you just vote, they're all endorsed automatically. Okay? Yes, sir.
So I guess my thought is endorsements, to me, almost seem like the central committee is predetermining.
Yes. That is exactly the point. And the logic is supposed to be that the voters don't have enough time to learn about any of these candidates. And that's why we need to tell them who to vote for. But then if you say like, hey, why don't we do a candidate form for these candidates, oh, no, we don't want to do that.
I've even heard the statement, the voters aren't smart enough to figure out who to vote for. I was insulted.
That's a true statement. I'm gonna go faster
I
here.
heard that Central Committee too.
Yes.
Now, this is a different kind of question, and this one I said I'm gonna go faster, this is gonna take longer. This one, you're gonna vote on each of these lines, okay? And I'll try to go fast, so I might go before you vote. This is asking you on a 1 to 9 scale. 1 to 9 scale, you're against the statement or you support the statement. 9, I just really agree with what that says. 1, I don't agree. 0 is abstain, if you want to abstain. Competition in Republican primaries is good. If you don't think that's true, 1, that low end. If you think, yes, competition's good, that's a 9, somewhere along that scale. The statement, competition in Republican primaries is good.
You got to yell out, vote now.
You're voting on the first
Yes.
one. Okay, let me just go. Okay, so that's got a real high number, 8.67. Second one, endorsement in Republican primaries should be rare and by a supermajority, meaning a lot of the huge chunk of the committee needs to believe we need to endorse. And if some of these aren't clear, I apologize. So, but hopefully I did good enough on most of them. I'm just gonna give it a second, I'm gonna go, because once I get enough down there. Okay, so we've got 7.3. Party members should be forced to support an endorsed primary candidate. So this is another thing that happens in the primary is if you're on the committee and somebody gets endorsed, even if you're running against them, you're supposed to support the endorsed candidate. So party members should be forced to support an endorsed primary candidate. They can't disagree with the endorsement. Okay. Okay, so that's a 2, 1.86. And the endorsement process should be open to the public. Okay, let's see what we got down there. Okay, so that's a 7.79. So we generally get the speed of how we feel. By the way, just so you know, in a group, I'm going to take that one. Party members should be forced to, I'm going to use that one. Party members should be, well, let's not do that. Let's do endorsement projects should be open to the public. We're going to look at that. So this is how everybody voted. So there were 5 people that voted no, it shouldn't be open to the public. And there are 34 people that voted it should. So we were totally polarized in there. So when you spend time doing this kind of stuff, you realize it also matters even in an average. There can be people at one end and the other end. And so even on this question, there's people at very, very different ends of the spectrum. Which would be most support? No change to the party primary endorsement happening before the filing deadline. Party primary endorsement only after the filing deadline, or no party primary endorsements. If you had to pick between one of those 3, I know there could be other options, but just directionally, what do you feel most comfortable with? No change, only after the filing deadline, or not do party primary endorsements at all. Okay, so 24 said not at all, 17 said after the deadline, 1 person wants no change on that. So that gets directionally. Imagine now if we were going to spend all day or a whole weekend in a seminar, how we could work through and talk about some of these things and then come to even better conclusions as to what was the right thing to do. Okay, this is the next topic, which is public engagement. So when's the last time you were to a Clermont County Republican Central and Executive Committee candidate forum? Never been. By the way, when was the last time you've been to a League of Women Vipers candidate forum? You know, the League of Women Voters used to do candidate forums. They were terrible. You know why they quit doing them?
Because St. Matthew retired.
I don't know about that. I think a part of it is because they're actually largely controlled by the Republican Party. Because if you look, a lot of the people on that did that are in government jobs, some in the library, were the people that are running those. And they established a rule after the 2018. So in 2018, there was there was supposed to be a League of Women Voters, debate about the auditor office. I showed up, Linda Fraley at the last minute canceled because of some family emergency. I don't think she was ever gonna show up, okay? But they still did it, and there were a lot of good questions that went on. After John McGraw, some of you know John McGraw, he walked out, I did like fantastic. You go, it's online somewhere, and he goes like, that was like presidential. You know, like it was like I slept at a Holiday Inn, you know, that night, talking about like, you would have thought I really knew about like tax codes and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so after that, they established a rule that if any candidate for the office would not participate in the candidate forum, there would be no candidate forum. So if any candidate wanted to participate, the whole thing's canceled. So since then, it's always been the party's mantra that endorsed candidates are not supposed to participate in candidate forums. Union Township did them when I was the head of Union Township's committee, but you'll find that if you go back and look, they start chipping away. The first couple ones, none of the endorsed candidates show up. Then they start showing up because it's like it's a big township, you know, we're going to show up. So, but the history is not to do it. So, the next thing I have on public engagement, candidate forums, debates, meet the candidate nights. None of that pretty much happens in Clermont County. So you don't really have a chance. Now, you might say like, if it did happen, I'm not going, it'd be boring as hell. You know, but that doesn't really happen. So I'm gonna actually ask you, which 3 on this list would you most support for public engagement? It's a canned list of 9 things I came up with. So just directionally, you might come up with a bunch of other things, but we're not gonna have enough time. You're gonna be asked, what's your first selection? Then I'm gonna ask you, what's your second selection? Then I'll ask you, what's your third selection? So right now, you're just making your first selection. But think when I read through this list, what are your top 3? And it's gonna weight your votes. Your first selection is gonna get 3 points, your second selection 2 points, your third selection 1 point. What would you most support? A fun social club is 1. Candidate forums and debates 2. Issue forums and debates 3, like the pot issue or this. Issue forums and debates 3. Meet the candidate nights, not debates, but just to meet the candidates 4. Door-to-door outreach 5. Visibility activities 6, like honking waves wearing Trump flags. Scholarship or youth activity. And make kids have to write essays on the Constitution or the Second Amendment and then give them scholarships. Educational events like the Constitution, stuff like that, so people can learn. Or accountability activities like attending school board meetings and making a report of what happened at a school board meeting. When you think about public engagement, and I know I'm loading a lot on you real quick here, but first think, what would be your first choice off of this list? You have to pick from this. Right now, you're making your first choice as to which of those you think would be good for the party to invest in, or your top choice to invest in. Okay? Now I'm going to hit the button here. Now you're making your second choice. You made your first choice, now you're making your second choice. You cannot choose the same thing twice. If you press the same button as you pressed for the first one, it's not going to accept your vote. Second choice off of just this list. Okay? And now your third selection. Third selection. 0 is abstain if you don't want to make a selection, but want to record a vote. Okay, let's see what we got. Now remember, these are weighted. So the top thing with 83 weighted points, okay, so this is not, there aren't 83 people here voting, okay, is candidate forums and debates. The second thing is meet the candidate nights. And the third thing is issue forums and debates. Well, this is pretty interesting. Okay, we have 2 on a fun social club, that's what I like. Door-to-door outreach 8, visibility, scholarship, some points down here on accountability activities like attending school board meetings or attending governmental things and reporting on them. But if you look at this, what a shock. For people that don't want to be informed, want to get a card because you're too dumb to figure out who to vote for anyway, you seem to want those kind of things that would inform you. Which, by the way, I think is fundamental, if it's not too late already, to the survival of our republic. We have been so dumbed down by a political class And it doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats. They love to dumb us down.
They need civics.
What does a campaign become? A bunch of hippies mailers. Right? Who's gonna build a wall? By the way, of the congressional race, which candidate do you think is gonna most get that wall built? They all said they were gonna do it. They weren't all bullshitting us, were they?
They believe in it too.
So, it's a practice of telling you what you want to hear. It's different when you're answering questions face to face and somebody can challenge you. I just want to make one other little quick editorial before I move on here is be wary of politicians that love to talk to you one-on-one. They all love to do that because they can tell every person a different thing. What they hate is in front of a group where they have to answer a question that everybody hears the answer. So, but I think that's great that the predominant selections all involve things that would inform people and allow people to become part of the debate and discussion. Well, the next one is principles and accountability. So, what does this mean? What does principles and accountability mean? Ultimately, who do the politicians work for? Us. Okay? Who does, should they be working for the Central Committee or should the Central Committee be working for them? Right? So should it be fair to ask in a Central Committee meeting, hey, I would like each of the candidates, each of the office holders, instead of telling us some more bullshit jokes, to tell us what did you do in the last week to reduce the size and scope of government, to increase justice and liberty? What are you going to do in the next week? Those kind of questions don't get asked. Right? And you end up hearing a bunch of blather. Who listens to Dan Bongino? I listened to him, and he went off, not to go off on too much of a tangent here. I don't listen to him very regularly, but I listened to him one day, and he was going off, and he was just cussing his county commissioners. He's F-bombing, not on the radio show, on his podcast. I don't think he F-bombs on his podcast. He's just F-bombing, and he's like, he lives in some county in Florida. He's like, it's not a rich county. He's a rich guy in the county compared to anybody else. He's like, and these politicians, I might use some bad language here about politics, because this is what he said. He's like, these effing politicians, they all want to kiss my ass. They want the sign in my yard. They want this. They're constitutional conservatives. They want to get things. And what did they do last night? They effing raised taxes. Okay? And they did it without engaging the public, and they're dead to me. He's like, I have come to the realization of my life that all politicians are scum. You can't trust any of them. Okay? And they all will kiss your ass. They all want to kiss your baby, but they hate you. They think you're dumb, and they hate you. And from now on, this is what he said, and I try to keep this in my mind, I am only going to judge any politician, he said, including Donald Trump, on what he gets done. Not what he bullshit says, some YouTube clip, some questioning he did during a congressional thing that seemed awesome but never really achieved anything. Okay? So, principles and accountability have to do with who's in charge, us or them. Is it government of the people? If you're on Central Committee, wouldn't you say that the organization is quickly becoming entirely tops down? You can't even make motions in meetings.
Dictatorship.
It's like a dictatorship. You can't make motions in meetings. By the way, if when Jeff Corcoran was getting elected, if you would ask him, are you going to run a fair meeting and let people make motions? What do you think his answer would have been? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Robert's rule says so.
Yeah, I'm going to follow Robert's rules.
Even if I have to spend.
I still remember David Painter when he was running for party chair. He's like, my policy is going to be, it's your party. It's your party. And that's the way of saying I'm not going to do shit for anybody. Because, what his view might be, my view could be very different as to what we should be doing. You need people that have the skills to work through that. So, but that's principles and accountability. I actually got in trouble for this.
No.
But the funny part, it was on the mailer that you probably got, and it's 100% true, and it had links to news stories on every one of these, and sometimes I'm just stunned at how much the political class gets away with stuff, and we don't even know it. It's like it's not even reported. But you can go find it. It's just like we've gotten so tuned out. Clermont County, we're kind of in a black done because we don't have a radio station, we don't have a functional newspaper, we don't, places like this, Enquirer, and stuff like that, they don't cover us really, they only if somebody gets killed or something thing takes place. But I just like to give this background, I can't resist. We had Archie Wilson. How many people think that nobody knew Archie Wilson had some problems with drugs and underage prostitutes prior to him getting picked up in Kentucky? That was a total mystery.
I remember seeing him at the polls, the Eastgate Baptist Church, the huge church.
Yeah.
He was walking around with a big smile on his face, and he was holding a Bible.
I never saw this, somebody might have seen it, it's been around for a while, but Archie Wilson's shtick, somebody told me, was he would have like a Kroger bag. I'm looking for any visual response to somebody that ever saw this. And he would say, these are the things that matter to me, and he would give a little stump speech, and he'd pull out a copy of the Constitution, he'd pull out a Bible, he'd pull out a gun, like, this is what matters, Second Amendment, faith, this kind of thing. And it's like, oh yeah, and drugs, you got any drugs in the bag? Or some numbers for prostitutes. Yes, ma'am.
I remember Archie Wilson. I used to be employed by the county, and I lost my job because of the cronyism. What position was he? He was on Central.
He was a commissioner.
He was commissioner.
Yeah, these are all basically big shots, not regular committeemen. So Archie Wilson, and the funny thing, you go ask now, and I realize I've been getting a rope-a-dope. Some of the politicians, even I can get rope-a-dope pretty good. It's like, you know what, Chris, somebody in law enforcement, we knew about it, we were on, I'm like, you guys knew about this. We could never get him in Clermont County. We tried so hard, we did this. It's like, oh, he got picked. The same thing's happening right now with the guy, there's a guy that was a drug dealer and a steroid dealer, Mark Ritter, okay? Unbelievable crimes in Clermont County. Oh, we could never get him, they arrested him in Kentucky on manslaughter for OD on a person. Okay? This is a pattern of, we were working so hard to get him, but we could never get him in Clermont County. Darn if they didn't always go to a different county to do these things. So Mary Walker, also was a commissioner, she got kicked off the committee for improper interest in a contract. A lot of people say that she got set up. Commissioners can't sign off on stuff that would give like raises to people that were relatives of theirs, and people claim she was set up, but anybody remember her husband, Doug Walker? So Doug Walker was Union Township fiscal officer, and then I think administrator or whatever, and he millions of dollars in fraud. Pat Monger, remember Pat Monger? Engineer, was having employees do work on his house, work on his cars, all this kind of stuff. Okay? David Umel, tampering with evidence, bad fraudulent petitions. Jesse Kramer, you can go watch about this. This has been totally whitewashed. Jesse Kramer should not be a judge. He is a dirtbag that preyed upon a young woman that worked for him who just got married, who idolized him. Okay? By the way, once they got their story straight, it wasn't that they were having sex in the workplace or in the park next to the workplace or this or anything else on company time. It was that they were engaged in an improper sexting relationship outside of office hours. So think about this for a second. That's the answer to make it go away. We were engaged in an improper sexting relationship outside of our office hours. I have some friends, in my age range that have daughters, that are getting in the age range of the woman that was involved in this. And it's like, well, how do you feel about that? Like, so the judge goes home, and when he's with his wife and kids, that's when he does his improper sexting relationship with a subordinate. It's even worse. It's creepier. It's like they ran to a cheap hotel. That's easier to understand on a base level than the explanation. Jeff Corcoran, head of the Central Committee. And then you can go watch all the things about when there's assaults in meetings, that's pretty much a new level. By the way, and then he defended the person that committed the assault and informed the committee that he would defend anybody that committed assaults that he liked.
Yeah, I like you.
That was actually words, wasn't it? Like, if he liked you, he would defend you.
Yep, it's a quote.
Alan Freeman, a $50,000 fine for campaign finance violations, had $280,000 worth of Larry Householder money spent under the banner of Alan Freeman for state rep. Never reported any of it when he actually appeared. Never claimed on any campaign financial report, any TV commercials or radio because that's how dumb they think you are. He did this, and now he's appealing it to the Supreme Court. He's gone through every level of appeal. And then Gene Schmidt was also a householder campaign thing. And some of you might have, I know most of you have never heard of Gene Schmidt, but she has been involved in some things over time. But my point is, this is not who we should be. We should press for people that are to high standards of their conduct in office, okay? And so I highlighted that on the card, but it's just some example of, we have a pretty bad record over the time. Tom Brakeman told me this, there was a time we had more convicted elected officials in Clermont County than any other county. It was like in a period, there was a time when we had like 4 that were current, in a given year. It was like in a 12-month period, we had 4 elected officials. You had to cut the time I just right now that were convicted.
Chris, one of the things that was really strange, I mean, like Ashley and I were in the parking lot one day when Gene Schmidt came out with something for us to sign for petition. So one of the things that makes it really hard for us when we're in those meetings is when these people show up that are elected officials, because they're intimidating. Because you think, am I gonna tick her off? I mean, the Linda Fraley's and all of them, I mean.
I have never not signed somebody's petition, by the way.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but
So
I
because,
I didn't really want to, I mean, but you just feel so pressured because they're elected. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
it's
will tell.
When you sign somebody's petition, all it means is you feel like they can be on the ballot. It doesn't mean you support
You
them,
said that.
that kind of
You
thing.
spoke up and said that,
The
okay.
thing that gets me, since you brought that up as a side note, is if you're involved in the process, you'll notice most of the elected officials get all their petition signatures at meetings, like central committee meetings, versus going door to door. And one of the things that is humbling and important in politics is that no matter how high and mighty you are, at times you have to get people to sign on a piece of paper. And I actually think those, in my failed attempts at running for office, you never saw me have people sign a petition at a meeting. I don't need to. Okay, I know enough people outside the committee that it's not hard to get a petition signed. You wonder, don't these people, like David Hubel, when his petitions got tossed for being fraudulent, they were all committee members and they were all like county employees. Doesn't he have to go door to door in his own neighborhood? Doesn't he feel comfortable doing that? I can get 20+ signatures in a heartbeat. If I needed to get one in the next 4 hours, I could get 25 signatures just in people that live around me. Okay? They'll sign pretty much anything. I'm trying to get them to sign some legal documents that'll give me their houses, but. Okay. So here's another one of these 1 to 9 scale. So if you were trying to hold politicians accountable, just listen to me before we start voting here. I started thinking about when I was making this chart, what is the kind of things that we would want Clermont County politicians to do? That we'd like to hold them up that you're doing these things. So these are the list of things. Shrinking government and taxes. That might be, conservative thing you want them to do. Shrink. You might say, no, I don't care about that, or 9, yes, I really want to see politicians that shrink government and taxes, not keep growing government and taxes. And then there's other ones here. Be good stewards of tax dollars. We're going to go down this list. But I just want to get a feeling, if you were holding politicians accountable, if you were coming up with, these are what I want to see elected officials in Clermont County do, how would you feel about each of these? So the first one, shrinking government and taxes. 1, that's not important to you. 9, you think that's something that's very important to you. Okay. All right, 8.83. Be good stewards of tax dollars. Don't waste money. Good stewards of tax dollars. Promote private sector jobs. Increase government services. Get new government projects. Increase freedom and liberty. conservative principles. Okay. All right, so let's look at what we got here. Number 9's the maximum. So I'll go into one of these just in that split. The first one, just to say, I'm not gonna do this on all of them. But look at that. On the first one, everybody voted 9. There might have been an abstain. Okay? So, shrink government taxes, we really want that. Be good stewards of tax dollars, we want that. Promote private sector jobs, we're pretty high on the scale for that. Increase freedom and liberty, we're almost 9s on that. Implement conservative principles, almost 9s on that. Increase government services, not a huge amount. Get new government projects, not a huge amount. What do most politicians talk about most of the time? New projects, new service. Did you ever see that? I read an article once, we have, how many people ride on the Clermont County bus system? Okay. So I read an article that most county bus systems like ours, that actually if they just paid for people's Ubers, it would cost like a fraction of the amount of money. That the ridership is so small on these things that paying for their Ubers would be cheaper than paying for the system that drives around empty buses everywhere. Could you imagine how pathetic it would be being a bus driver on a bus that nobody ever got on?
It'd be an easy job.
I think it'd be boring, but any event, so we kind of get the point of what we care about, so on that list. Any comments on this? Yes, sir.
Considering the projects and all that, look at all these roundabouts. David Painter's on a special
Mission?
committee that goes through all counties, and these roundabouts are sprouting up like mushrooms where we don't even need them.
Right.
Look at the roundabout they put on Route 32. Was that needed?
That's atrocious.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Where's the one on Route 32?
It's like
You mean the Bower Road thing? Yeah, where it takes like 20 minutes to turn left off the
You gotta
Bower
go this way.
Road. That's why I avoid. You know what's funny is you get these things that if you were it's like in New Richmond. Anybody here from New Richmond? Okay, so I don't know what the roundabout thing is there, but it's.
Eliminate the stoplights.
But the point is, I was like, I don't know that that's going to cause me or anybody else to want to come to New Richmond. It's not going to maybe make us go away, but any politicians love to say things like, if we do this, it's going to create this huge growth here. I don't know about that. Like, why is that going to make me want to go to New Richmond? There could be other things make you want to go to New Richmond, or restaurants or something like that. Yes, sir.
Well, you have to ask yourself why you would put it on the major highway that
But you don't want any truck traffic, because you don't want any industry.
Exactly, or are they trying to control traffic that comes through and speeds too much?
Well,
That's
part of the
why you
argument
do
to that, I don't want to go on a tangent with it, but part of the argument was that by slowing down traffic there would cause people to come into New Richmond. No, it caused me to race faster because I'm running late because I can't get to the damn roundabout. Okay, so
The can't get that with the speed humps on Beachmont Avenue.
slow you down so you'll want to stop and hang out here. Okay, and then I put general election focus. I think this is the second to last one. So it says focus on voter engagement, winning, and maximizing turnout to offset blue counties. So in Clermont County, how much people on the Central Committee, small, medium, or large, how much focus is on the primary? Large, okay? Yeah, we might spend as little as possible, but it's got to get all the right people in, okay? General election, becomes like a small focus, when in reality, if you think about it, it's called Pearl counties. I don't even know this term, Pearl counties. But a lot of places you have like a blue county, like Hamilton County, and all the counties around it are red. And so those counties have to produce turnout enough to offset the blue vote in Hamilton County. So a county like ours should be focused on turnout in a general election. Why? Because if you bus people, like you hear about people busing people, if you go pick up derelicts on the street or whoever the hell you pick up and throw them on a bus and take them to vote somewhere with fake documents you just had made, if you bring people on a bus to vote or have an outreach program like that, the odds are when you bring them to the polls in Clermont County, they're gonna 70% vote Republican. If you do that in Hamilton County, if the Republicans had an outreach in Hamilton County, the odds are the people you're bringing on the bus, the Republican bus, are gonna vote Democrat. But we do none of that. We do none of that focus on general election turnout. General election turnout. So we, for example, on the issue 1 and 2, the abortion and the bot, we barely we were taking a high five for getting a little over like 52% on those issues. Okay? When the reality is we need to be at like 60, 70% to offset Hamilton County. It was a fail because we are the ones that need to deliver the margin. However you feel about those particular votes, just the point being we need to deliver margin and we need to deliver it consistently, is general election. So I put this topic in here on general election. It's one of the 7 areas to have more focus on general election. Okay, this is another 1 to 9. What do you think? And this ties in primaries and general elections. What's most important to you? Okay, and I'll tell you what these are before we go crazy. On a 1 to 9, control of who wins the Republican primaries. So in Clermont County right now, if you win the Republican primary, you're guaranteed to get into office. That might not be the case in 4 or 5 years. Okay, control who wins the Republican primaries. Voter education in the Republican primaries. Winning general elections in intra-county. That means across multiple counties. Okay, and providing margin in general elections to offset blue counties. You're going to get the vote on each of these. The first one, how important it is to you that the party controls who wins Republican primaries. 1 to 9. Okay. Second one. That we do voter education in Republican primaries, that the party do voter education in Republican primaries. Okay. Winning general elections in intra-county. I'm sorry, that means inside the county. That means like winning the commissioner races, winning the auditor race against Democrats. Winning general elections intra-county. Okay, and providing margin in general elections to offset blue counties. Providing margin to offset blue counties. Okay, so here again you have, look at this. Where is most of the focus right now in the Clermont County Republican Central Executive Committee? Winning the primaries. What might voters want if they got educated? They want to be educated, win in general elections, and provide margin to offset blue counties. Yes, sir.
So I have one comment. My wife and I both have been working the polls for several years now.
Yes, sir.
And we work in a location where there's, I think, 6 precincts that vote there. And I can tell you, based on what currently happens, even though I don't think number A should be a focus, it might as well be because the voter turnout on primaries is so freaking low that it is absolutely pathetic.
But let me just make a comment before you. That's the way party insiders want it.
Well, I'm saying they might as well do
Right,
the
but
selection
just so you
because
understand.
we, the voters, aren't showing up
Okay,
to
but
make it.
I just want to help narrate what you're saying. Turnout in primaries is absolutely terrible. If you go look and you were going to walk in your neighborhood to people that vote in primaries, you'd be stunned at how few people vote in the primaries. Okay? That's how party insiders want it. They don't want a lot of participation in primaries. It makes for cheaper campaigns. I only need to send my mailers to 10 houses on a street versus 100 houses on a street. So the party insiders that want to control primaries, having low turnout in primaries is a way that they try to control primaries.
And I can tell you one additional thing. There were, in the last primary, you would be amazed at how many Democrats voted in the Republican primary because there were no selections to be made in the Democratic primary. There was literally one person for almost every office. So basically, they're doing the same thing that the Republicans are doing. They're only
No
having one
option.
person in each office.
We can talk after the meeting about this. I'm gonna make this one comment, and I'm gonna move on. Is also I learned from Tom Brinkman, in counties that are all red or all blue, most of the time there's an unwritten agreement between the two parties not to challenge each other. So that the Democrats in Clermont County know they can't win. Now, at some point, that changes, and all of a sudden, but for years, we know we can't win, so we're not even gonna run candidates for most office, so you don't have to spend any money, Republicans. And what's the win for them? The lawyer class doesn't get blackballed, and companies don't get blackballed from government contracts. So I learned, and then Tom Brinkman told me that, and then somebody in Cuyahoga County told me that. The Cuyahoga County Republican Party intentionally ran candidates because they couldn't keep nobody running, but they would basically get behind. The insiders, lawyer class would get behind candidates that had absolutely no chance of winning, so that the Democrats would never have to spend money in Cuyahoga County races. Because even if the Republicans were going all out, if Donald Trump moved to Cuyahoga County, he probably couldn't win, right? So they're making a calculation, the insider class, that they can't win, so why try? But we can talk after the meeting about some of the things you're talking about with the switchovers. Okay, and then the last of the 7 topics is school boards. So I'm gonna ask a question to vote before we talk about this. The topic says become a catalyst for school board reform in Clermont County. And remember, this is a statement of what the party should be doing, with a commitment to educational excellence, mayor's right, eradicating activist agendas. Okay, and hopefully this keeps coming back on. Okay, when it does that. The backup is, it's getting pressed for time by the backup projector back there. So here's a vote. How do you feel we're doing on each of these? This is a 1 to 9 again. Quality of education in the school system in Clermont County. I know it varies. You know, if your frame of reference is your own district, then answer for your own district. This is just a pulse. How do you feel like we're doing on quality of education, public education in Clermont County? Overall. Okay, how do you feel we're doing on teaching students citizenship in Clermont County? How do you feel we're doing on teaching kids morals and ethics? That our school system is producing moral and ethical citizens? How do you think we're doing on keeping woke culture wars out of our schools in Clermont County? And how do you think we're doing on school infrastructure in Clermont County? Buildings, stuff like that. That's a good, I put this on here maybe. I like what somebody said, it could go either way.
Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing.
Let's talk about that in a second. I made one here that I didn't intend to make a trick question. Okay, so that's the, okay, so there's how we did on those, okay? So infrastructure, you know what's so funny about infrastructure, because somebody said that, is I feel like in school districts, when they can't deal with the quality of education, the citizenship, the morals and ethics, let's build new buildings.
Exactly.
When the buildings aren't the issues. I went to parochial school, I went to McNick, the building was crappy when I went there, and it's still crappy now. Okay, that wasn't the thing. Okay, they finally got new windows, okay? But that wasn't the thing that made the difference on the educational experience, okay?
What year did you graduate?
84. 80, okay?
I went to a school that was condemned when my mom went there.
What did your mom do?
She was a mom.
No, I'm making a joke. What did your mom do that caused it to get condemned? But quality of education, you know, I'm gonna flip through these just so we can see the differences real quick here. So this is how we were on quality of education. We had 8 people out of 1, 1 person out of 9. And I realize this question isn't really a fair question because we have 11 districts in Clermont County. So you could have variability, but it's just directionally giving an idea. This is citizenship. We're doing terrible with citizenship, we think, our gut tells us. This is producing moral and ethical citizens. This is keeping woke culture out. And this is, now this was a trick question unintentionally, but infrastructure, you know, all over the place. Because it was the way I worded it wasn't good. It wasn't clear what it was, hey, I screw up. So, yeah, but these are our overalls on these things. So, you know, school boards, I tell people, you know, school boards is probably the lowest paid elected office and they get paid by the meeting. Okay, so if you wonder why they have certain meetings, they get paid by the meeting. But it's the most important elected position in the whole county because it has an absolutely instrumental role in the formation of the next generation of citizens in Clermont County, if they don't leave. And so when it's not you know, when we don't even think about it, it's nonpartisan ballots, so it gets complicated. How do you endorse? How do you do what? How do you get behind people? You know, and then people generally try to avoid it. I tell people, I'm 58, I'm guilty for our school system being as screwed up as it is, and I would say probably pretty much all of us are. Meaning, what do I mean by that? We all knew the school system was screwed up 20, 30 years ago and on a bad path, and I didn't do enough, and you probably didn't do enough. And now we're left with a mess. Also left with a mess where I'm going to make a rare defense of teachers, where they're having to deal with societal problems that they should never have to deal with in a school. Okay? So we criticize them, but on the other hand, what about the parents? What happened to kids coming to school that don't know how to do their ABCs by the time they get to school? Don't know how to, because they haven't had any parental guidance for the first 4 years before they end up in school. But Joe Biden wants to have kids in school from the minute they come out of your womb, so that should be fine to solve all those problems. That's a joke. Okay, so school boards. So what do you think? You know, I didn't have a lot of stuff on this, but are there any quick thoughts on what you think on school boards we should be doing? What the party should be doing? Yes, sir, Kurt.
Well, one thing we should do is more education on who's running and keep the ex-teachers out.
Okay.
Because as far as like in West Clermont School District, I see they more vote their pensions. I've been to their meetings and that than they do for the kids. Because when they don't get their money, they cut on the kids.
Right.
They don't cut on themselves and everything and that, you know. And while they do deserve a good living, they got to realize we're not made of money. And like a lot of us are retired now, and our property taxes are going through the roof, and West Clermont is already pleading poverty, even though the state says we're fully funding you now.
Well, so okay, so I appreciate all those points, and there's some things, you know, I could have put as questions, but I didn't know how to introduce this topic for a first time that we were together as any sort of a group. But you get into the whole thing of like, you know, how many people here, I didn't put a vote up here, but answer in your mind, how many people here think the fundamental issue with education is money? If we gave it $1 billion, if we gave unlimited money to all our school districts in Clermont County, would they fix themselves?
No.
Right? So it's not a money thing. In fact, money might be part of the problem. Right? When you have too much money and you keep expanding the role of the school with the money. Yes, ma'am.
I'd be more interested in seeing who funds these people who are running for the school board. Are we having outside money coming in? Is it local money? Because you see big signs. And where do these people get their campaign funds?
Okay. I think by and large they're very low races in terms of how much money is spent. They're based on ignorance, like you don't even know who the people are on the ballot. I think he had his hand up next.
Well, you guys have two technical school board members back here. I lost my election this past November. This is Corey West. He won his in Goshen. I think these are the two best opinions. I know Corey can have his, he's on the winning side, so he has a little bit, but he's also facing a lot of, you know,
pushback
in his. To talk about, I don't want to say I'm going against what the man in front said. I used to be a teacher. I walked away from the profession because I don't like what's happening in it. I didn't like what was happening in administration. But I ran, and I had a different view, and I had an educated view as school board, but if their focus is about the kids. And we have one here in Milford that she, a 40-year teacher, she's a liberal, and she always said, oh, it's about kids, but she was also caught, demeaning Trump on her Facebook with
Right.
And doing stuff. And it just depends on what side of the spectrum.
Well, so I think it's kind of like also on the thing about, Andy, when you brought up about the who can run for central committee, the issue with, that everyone heard the Judge Brandis thing on free speech. The remedy for bad speech is more free speech. Okay? The remedy, if you think there's too many teachers and connected people on school boards, is more non-teachers run for school boards. You can't say that it's wrong. I appreciate what you're saying. I think people should run. It's only natural that people involved in the education system would tend to run for school boards. That doesn't mean they're evil, doesn't mean they're this, or that you're going to solve it by just some arbitrary you can't do it type of thing. But I do think one of the big issues is that it becomes a cozy relationship. One of the things, you guys have been on school boards, is the first thing that happens when they get elected to school board, they go to like a how to be a school board camp in Columbus, where they teach you how to be indoctrinated correctly. Like, for example, that you're supposed to always vote unanimously, so there's no controversy. So they teach you this is the way you're supposed to behave on a school board. And by the way, how's that funded? It's a political thing. It's funded by taxpayers. I learned we have the County Commissioners Association, the School Board Association, this all funded by taxpayers, all political animals. I just found out, somebody told me in Florida that's illegal. Citizens can't fund these advocacy groups that say that purport that they're in some sort of role to help the place. Yes, sir.
And that was a really small part. And I'm sorry. I honestly think, from my vantage point, I had some really good input to give the community because of my loss. I ran into your buddy Greg Simpson right before the election. I know that no sarcasm, but that was my first introduction to this committee. I didn't know anything about this stuff, and there's nobody under age 40 in here. The young. I'm sorry. I was looking around the back of heads. I always see the back of heads. My point was that we don't have a young enough involvement and the youth, and we need to get the youth more involved on our side, and that's from the minimal. Because I'm 42, and I didn't even know about this stuff till I ran in this election this past November. So I don't know about it. More people need to know about it, and then when.
So just for sake of time, I'm watching my watch.
Yeah, but Simpson came up to me and told me you guys wouldn't endorse, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I ran into two people that were staunch Trump supporters, and me and her were out enjoying dinner, and these two people said, we're voting for Trump. I'm like, I was like, watch this girl. Who'd you vote for in the school board? They're like, the two chicks. And that was the two liberal people because they didn't know who was running in the school board.
Yeah.
I lost by 129 votes in this thing out of 38,000 because of, as someone said earlier in here, that, there are dumb voters out there.
So it came out not in this term.
And I would say uneducated.
Just real quick, I'm not close, we're almost done, okay, but I'm watching my clock, okay? Is not in this term, but the prior term, it's come up on the Central Committee about school boards. And Greg Simpson told me on school boards that he didn't see why we would get involved in school boards because it would just bring controversy. Okay? And that's what we need, because people that are the insiders and the elected officials, they just care about their job. Okay? And they're not willing to take a risk. Right? They're not going to be on a controversial point to take a risk. There. Yes, sir. Quick, because I got to.
Thanks for the kind word, but yeah, it is a struggle. I'm up 4-1 right now on Goshen School Board, and I'm not afraid to bring up the topics. But one thing to her point, it was my own money that I put out for my election campaign, but also the involvement of the meetings. Nobody comes to the meetings, and that's what they want. They want people not to come to meetings. They want them to
right.
Class.
They want them to be dumb and ignorant.
Yep.
Okay.
Come to the meetings.
All right, real quick, man. Real quick. No, people are going to get up and run out of here. It's almost.
I attend school board meetings at Clermont Northeastern, and you can ask questions, and they sit there and will not answer.
Correct. That's another thing. Our political servants that want to serve you, go to pretty much any government meeting. Even if you try to talk, they're going to tell you, we need to read to prepared remarks, we're not going to answer anything you say. Okay. Yes, sir. Quick.
I was going to say, I think the tax money that goes for school boards should be based on how many students they have, because people are pulling their kids out of public schools and putting them in private schools because of what's going on there. And I
Actually,
think they
private
should be
school
taking
attendance
the
is going
money-
down because people can't afford it.
Well, I think they should be
Okay,
taking the
because
money away
homeschooling
from
is what's
schools
happening
if
more.
they're not.
Okay, I'm gonna move us on, just because I wanna, we can stay, anybody wants to stay and talk about this stuff? Wait till you stay and I'll tell you how school boards work in Florida. It's unbelievable how different it is in Florida as to here, okay? For school boards, real quick vote, I didn't know there was another vote. What three would you most support, bear with me, what three would you most support that we might do or the party should be doing? Okay, you're gonna get the pick three. Remember we did a pick three before? First one, second one, third one. Here's the list. One, have work groups by school district. Let's say that some of us wanted to be in a work group for a certain school district, okay? Monitoring of school board meetings. Somebody going to the meetings and taking notes of what they actually happens. Levy resistance and levy repeal. By the way, you know you can repeal levies. Okay? Endorsement in school board races, parent education sessions, support of conservative parent groups, review of curriculum, balanced school scorecards of some way on wokeism in school districts. Like imagine for all of our districts, you'd see which ones have transgender bathrooms, which one have this, which one have, okay? Which one allowed men and women's sports. Development of simple sample policy for school board adoption. So come up with things that we want school boards to put into their thing and help people to have a standard policy. So it's a list, arbitrary on my part. I apologize to the school board guys that I probably have bad ideas. But if you had to pick from this list, what would be the first thing you would support? One is work groups by school district, 2, monitoring of school board meetings, 3, levy resistance, levy repeal, 4, endorsement in races, 5, parent education sessions, 6, support of conservative parent groups, 7, curriculum review, 8, balanced scorecards on wokeism, and 9, development of simple policies for school boards to adopt. Okay, second selection.
Second or first?
Second, that was we had 40-something do the first one. This is the second one. I'm watching down that corner there. I know some people have left. There is a snooze you lose factor. If you don't get it in, click the button, you're out. Okay, and now your third selection. Third selection. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, so the number 1, monitoring of school board meetings. Number 2 is support of conservative parent groups. And number 3 is new curriculum review.
So I misread the chart. Number 1 was monitoring of school board meetings. Number 2 was curriculum review. And number 3 was balanced scorecards on wokeism by district.
I say levy repeal, because control the money, then you control everything else.
These aren't lined up quite right. So levy resistance and repeal is this one, 24. Okay. Now it's just a first blush, but if I ordered these by what we prioritize, it might help to at least get some ideas, and I apologize for probably not including good ideas on the list. Okay, so that's the school board one, and I just wanted to introduce that topic because we cannot keep not doing anything. We cannot keep not doing anything, and I just did more right now in 5 minutes than the Central Committee has done in 6 years. Okay.
Well, the group needs to be aware that at any time that some of us have brought up, we need to endorse, and we need to, well, not endorse, we need to bring these school board candidates to the meeting so that we can talk to them. That's been shot down, hasn't it? No, we can't do that. That's up to the individual townships. So I think some townships do that. I know Union Township, we did that, but we've done that in the past, but I don't know about the other townships. But yeah,
There's just so much, like, I don't even know, like, if somebody told me there was some district in Clermont County that allowed biological males to compete in female sports, it wouldn't shock me. Because I think it could be happening and we don't know about it. Milford probably. So, things like that, we don't even know what's going on. And the structure, it's almost impossible. There's 11, I think, school districts, how are you gonna keep track of what's going on in 11 school districts? Yes, sir.
I would just invite you guys to come out to the meetings, because the problem is the folks that are on there, they don't listen to the minorities there, but if the public comes and starts speaking up to them, then they really understand that what they're doing is not right, and if they continue down that path, they'll be unseated and get the right people in there, but you gotta show resistance to them, they're not gonna do anything about it.
So here's what I'm gonna do. So I appreciate everybody coming. I don't know if this worked or not, but we went through a lot of material and you got to give input on everything and a lot of you got to talk. And so what I'm gonna do, because we don't have any more time, because we're all itching for the book sale, and is they got a lot of DVDs and stuff, and you can donate whatever you want. So I'm gonna go over and take a whole cart of DVDs and give them $1. So no, I'm joking. Don't do that. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna summarize all these charts, okay, and I'll send them out. If you have signed in on the list and you put your email address there, I'll email them to you, so you'll get a copy of the information from the meeting. You'll also get on a list where I'll notify if you're doing something else, okay? Because I know this is just a meeting, and there's a lot of times you have meetings and it's like, okay, what the hell now? But hopefully for 2 hours on a lot of different topics, we've covered a lot of things where I know a lot about what you guys think. You know about what I think probably from some of my words, but we've had a chance to think about some of the issues. What I'm gonna do is summarize it. We can take it some of on Central Committee. I can't because I'm suspended, but we can take it to Jeff and the team. They tell them, just hey, by the way, these were like real people, okay? And most of them, 30 of them were not Central Committee members, had never been on a Central Committee.
I think the 30 people non-central, you can go to these meetings if you want.
Yeah, there's a third Wednesday.
Yeah.
Third Wednesday in Batavia, okay?
It would be very eye-opening if you've not been to one.
I will summarize this stuff and send it out, okay? And when I send out a note, if you've signed it on the list, if you haven't signed on the list, I obviously can't. If I know, I know Maggie didn't put down her email address, but I know her email address, okay? I know who you are, and I have your email address already. But I'll send them out, and then I'll send out like a little survey with it to say, is there an area here you'd like to get more involved with? If it's a productive use of your time. What we don't want to have is just, sitting around having meetings and shooting the shit.
Well, I mean, this is the point I hope I can express, is that Magda and I got involved with the Tea Party. And that's how we got involved in the Central Committee years ago. What happened in that whole
It's so
thing?
informative to go to those.
Did the wheel just fall off this thing? Because I mean, there was a
I
lot
think
of
it got, those people that were on it might know a lot more than me, but I think that at some point, I've heard people say two things. Over time, some of the topics got more out in the weeds at the meetings, but the other thing was that basically what happened to the National Tea Party. The people that weren't really Tea Party people ended up hijacking the movement, and David Painter became commissioner. And David Hubel became commissioner, and Craig Simpson was a big Tea Party guy.
No. He showed up. That was about it.
I'm joking. I can't. So I
For everybody else,
because I mean, when we were involved, there was a lot of people that were charged up about it. I mean, they were real pushback on it.
And some of those people went into Central Committee, and after a term, they were disillusioned, so.
That happens a lot on Central Committee, and I think the insiders like it. I know we're past time. There's about 40% turnover, and the 40% new people have no clue anything about Central Committee, and they assume that the people at the front are good intentioned, and then they get demoralized. So after 4 years, they're like they can't stand the thing. Right now, we're barely meeting quorum at meetings because people have become disenchanted. Okay, last comment, John.
I think everybody needs to, if you really want to keep up on things, and Chris might be embarrassed about this, but he has Hicks Watchdog on Facebook. I encourage everybody to take a peek at it and maybe subscribe to his following on Facebook, because he does have a lot of stuff going on during the week.
So make sure you have signed in.
I'll go to the county meeting.
Do not take the keypads. Leave the keypads up on the table. You're not stealing my keypads, okay? And thank you for coming. Remember, the magnets are free. The signs are $5. Somebody please buy the rest of the signs so I can tell Brown County we sold all their signs. They're $5 a piece. Thank you guys for coming.